welcome to the Be the Ultimate Assistant podcast with Bonnie and Vickie. Hello, everyone. I'm Vickie Sokol-Evans.
And I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen, and we are live here in London at the Executive Secretary Live Conference, where we are speakers in front of a live audience. Thank you so much.
It's early in the morning, so as Bonnie says, we know who your friends are when they show up. So.
And it is extra special. We are here in London, and it is the 5th anniversary of the conference called Executive Secretary Live, which is led by the visionary and strong advocate for assistance all over the world, Lucy Brazier. Can we please acknowledge and thank Lucy Brazier? Oh my goodness, this is so exciting.
What are we talking about, Bonnie, today? Very important topic.
We're going to talk about show me the money. Show me the money. Who's ready for an honest, blunt conversation about money and how to get more of it, how to make what we deserve?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So in honor of Equal Pay Day is in 3 days, April 4th.
Okay.
And the reason they chose April 4th is because, okay, it's 2017, right? It would take women up until April 4th of 2017 to make what men did in all of 2016.
So essentially, take your salary from last year of all 2016, plus add the salary between January 1st of this year to April 4th, and you'll be earning exactly what men made in just 1 year. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's perfect timing.
The topic for this morning is closing the wage gap, how to earn what you deserve. Right?
So you've been talking about this topic, throughout our Be the Ultimate Assistant workshops that we've been doing for the past 5 years. So for our listeners who may not know, what is the wage gap and what's going on?
What's going on is when we refer to the wage gap, it's the idea that women are nowhere in the world are making equal to what men make for the same job. And so I want to jump off with some numbers. Here are the facts. There are 1 billion assistants in the world. 1 billion, that's a B. And 95 to 98% of all of those assistants are female. So this issue of the wage gap is an essential issue for women all around the world. And I don't know about you, that matters to me a lot, and I know it matters to you a lot. At this moment, there is no country in the world where women make as much as men. Now, Norway, some of you might have heard that Norway just passed a law that says that it's now going to be a law that women need to make as much as men. But I just found out it's going to take till the year 2022 for that to happen. Wow. Now, in the United States, women make 80 cents for every dollar a man makes. Here in the UK, the situation is slightly better. Women are making 83 cents for every dollar a man makes. But in British pounds, that's 0.66 British pounds for every dollar, for every pound a man makes. So get ready for this one. If we keep going at the rate we're going now in terms of wages around the world, it's going to take 170 years to get to equality. Now, that's not okay with me. Is it okay with any of you? No. So, and on top of these statistics, on a personal note, I mean, I'm a person who started my career after college at $4.25 an hour. So ridiculously low wages, and I was grateful to get it. Right. This is a complicated issue, but now that I've been in 8 countries, you've been in even more than 8 countries, what I see is a troubling trend around the world. We see too many of our students who are working at the C-suite, and they're struggling to make ends meet.
Right.
We have one of our students who's one of the top assistants, I would say, in the United States, working in New York City right now, making a good salary, but you know the costs in New York City. And true story, on many days, she's having to decide between buying lunch and taking a taxi home after a 12-hour day.
Versus a subway.
Versus the subway. Yeah, at midnight, who wants to, people, the assistants of the world, what I'm seeing, are drowning in work caught up in this 24/7 nonstop world we're in, and pitifully underpaid, shamefully underpaid. And it's a complicated issue. On one hand, I say shame on the employers for doing this, for, executive salaries are through the roof, oftentimes millions of dollars. It's not okay that, Olympia and I used to talk about, well, you can't blame them for trying. Well, it's not okay. But then assistants certainly bear a lot of responsibility for speaking up on our own behalf.
Well, so essentially we're taking on so much of the workload because we're in the yes business. And what's happening with that one assistant is they're doing two jobs. So that company is saving a salary by us taking on more responsibility. So, and it's up to us to say when. Like, when is it enough? When is it too much? And I think that's also an issue there is when can you say no, or at least identify the workload needs to be broken up into two different positions.
Right.
So there's lots of different things. And when you go back to talking about feeling grateful for the job, can I tell a story about,
sure.
So I was going to a brand new city and applying to be a personal assistant in this new city. So to me, it was like, I'm brand new, I have all these skills, especially technology skills, and responsibilities and skills as an assistant, but it was a brand new market. So I was grateful just to get the job. I got the job, and it wasn't until I was going through some files and I was about to train my replacement that I found a piece of paper with my interview notes that the hiring manager had taken. And it had all my qualifications. I could see that they were really excited about bringing me on board. And at the very bottom, the recommendation says, hire her before she knows what she's worth.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Like, shame on me for not, I knew what I was worth. I knew with the technology skills I had that I was the best person for this position, but I was so grateful. And I went in there with gratitude, and I accepted what they gave me and never negotiated. I will tell you that when they started scope creep, when they started asking me to build databases and build all these technology solutions to automate and streamline their work and then also into their executive offices, I said, well, that type of role, I would need X amount, and then that's why I left that position, because I did know that they were creeping into the scope of the position.
But I'll bet you were a little nervous about it.
About what?
About asking for more money.
Yeah, because I didn't do my research.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was worth.
So, as we started talking to students around the world, I really started digging into this and found another interesting statistic. And it is, and I'm going to ask the live audience here, take a guess. When a woman is presented with a compensation package, hey, congratulations, we'd love to have you work for us. Here is your compensation package. What percentage of women will negotiate it and say, well, thank you so much. I'd love to work at your company, but I believe the role is worth this much money, and this is what I would need. What percentage, folks? 10? Someone? Anybody else? 5, 6?
10, 20, okay.
It's 7%. 7% of women, when we're presented with a compensation package, will negotiate. Contrasted with what percentage of men? 80%. What else? 50%. It's 57%. 57%. And there's lots of research and data on this subject, but the whole idea is that men, when they're brought up, they get the message that negotiating is fun. It's a game. It's competitive, but it's fun. And men are not caught up with, well, in general, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think less of me? Where women are very reluctant, very, very reluctant.
Well, and I think men also know that it is a negotiation. I just assume like, you're going to give me a reasonable salary based on, you're going to look at my skills and give me what you can give me.
Yeah.
I never, you just don't even think that it's possible. So why don't we know what we're worth? What is it? What's some strategies?
Yeah, it's astonishing to me that assistants in 2017 do not know what they're worth. And why? That's not really a mystery. I mean, money is considered this big, deep, dark secret that we shouldn't be talking about with one another. And I think it's time that that's why we're doing this, thanks to Lucy, that we're able to talk about this openly. We have to shine a light on this subject, because whatever salary women are making now impacts what we make next and next and next. So ways to find out your worth. I've spoken with recruiters all over the world. Recruiters in a local market welcome women to call them on the phone, even if they're not clients or candidates, to say, you know, could I run this by you, what my job description currently is, and what is that worth in London? What is that worth in suburbs of London, et cetera? Every recruiter will answer that question, because these assistants are potential candidates at some point, even if they're currently working. So recruiters are a great source. Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, and on my website I'll be putting these links on there. But it's a great way to find out where you stand. Not every job description is made alike, so it's not, you know, it's not necessarily apples to apples all the time, but you can get close. It's an inexact science, but women in general, we need to do a better job at sharing information with one another, mentoring each other. You know, you tell me, I'll tell you. You know, and I found out, you know, some companies discourage the talking among assistants about salaries, but in fact, it's against the law to prevent you from talking about salaries. And you want to tell that story about the teenager?
Yes. So in the United States, there was 2 high school students, a girl and a boy.
Just like 6 months ago, right?
Yeah, June 2016. Yeah. And they both got a job at a pizza place. They're both excited when they found out. They each got, like, you got a job? Oh yeah, I'm so excited about getting $6.25 an hour. That's what the boy said. And the girl said, you're getting paid what? I'm getting paid $6 an hour. It's the exact same position. He's making $6.25, she's making $6. And so she called and said, well, it must have been a mistake. And so she called the HR person. She was put on hold. The young girl thinking she's going to come back and say, oh, sorry, it was a mistake, $6.25 an hour. And instead, the woman came back and said, you're fired for talking about salary. And then called the boy and said, you're fired as well. And so they got attorneys, and it's been national news, which has been great, said it is illegal to fire people for the salary.
For talking about money. Yeah. And now the company has fired the manager, and those 2 kids are on the verge of getting their jobs back.
I don't know if they're going to be working for that company. I don't know if they
want
to.
Say yes.
Right.
But the lawyer said the manager probably did that because they were teenagers, that they could get away with it. You know, that you can't blame them for trying. Well, they tried, and the only way things are going to change is if we push back.
But I'm curious about if he negotiated that. I'm curious if they said, what would you like to make? And he says $6.25 an hour. So I'm missing a little bit of information, because I really want to know about the negotiation piece, if one of them said it or it truly was discrimination.
Right. Well, the data clearly shows that men make more than women. That you know, there's still an old assumption, you know, old stereotypes and old ideas die very hard. Beginning with the fact that companies and governments are run primarily by men, so it's a male sensibility. But the old idea, for example, that if you hire a woman, that eventually she's going to leave because she's going to have children or she's going to have to take care of aging parents. So why make that much of an investment? And if you can get away with it, let's do that. So, you know, we're dealing with a lot of old ideas that need to be changed, and it's going to require speaking up. But as we know, that's a tricky one.
Well, and we can't. I feel like so we're going to give you guys things that we can do to remedy this. You want to tell your story about when you met Sheryl Sandberg?
Yeah, those of you who know me and have heard me, it's pretty impossible for you not to have heard me talk about Sheryl Sandberg.
Stalker. Just saying, in a good way. Sheryl, in a good way. She's a good stalker, Sheryl.
Sheryl Sandberg is the COO of Facebook, and she wrote a groundbreaking book in 2013 called Lean In. And Lean In talks about what it really means to be a working woman in this modern workplace. And she makes so many important, data-driven points in the book. And the main one is that a primary reason why women are not making as much as men is because we don't ask. We don't ask for it. And why don't we ask? We don't ask out of fear. Yes? We're afraid. We're afraid of a lot of things. We're afraid of rejection. We're being told no, of being made to feel that we don't feel worthy. We're fearful that we're not worthy of these salaries that men are making. So when I went to hear Cheryl speak in New York several years ago, she was amazing, and I came away more impressed than ever. But she said one thing that night that has never left me. She said that CEOs and executives from all around the world are contacting her, and they're saying, Cheryl, all of our female employees are reading your book. And then they're coming to us asking for more money. And we're giving them more money because they deserve it. So women are reading the book. I strongly recommend reading every word. When I first read the book, I was there on day one that it came out. I never had done that before in a book. And I was getting on a plane that day, and I felt like the scene. What were you going to say?
Well, so she's reading the book, and she's going, she's like, oh, yes. I'm like, did people think you were reading 50 Shades of Grey? Like, what were you reading? Yes, Cheryl, yes.
Yes, do it. So that makes such a solid point. The idea that women are feeling so terrified to ask. This whole issue of speaking up, which I believe is the #1 challenge in the workplace. We're socialized, women in general are socialized when we're young to not speak up, to not confront, that we see it as negative. We see it as it's a bad thing to toot our own horns and to say what we're great at. And yesterday here at the conference, we were talking about the need for a written skills portfolio. Well, that's the heart of what the fix is for this problem.
So, whose fault is it? Is it the company's fault? Where does the blame lie right now?
It's not black, unlike my dress, it is not black and white or your outfit. It's complicated. It's complicated, but there's no doubt that executives and leaders, HR, recruiters to some degree, although recruiters benefit. The more money people make, the more money recruiters make. But HR are paid by the client, the company. So, when I worked with Olympia Dukakis for 25 years, I would often think to myself, how cool is it that she has an agent and a manager to negotiate on her behalf? And I would often sit there and think, who's negotiating for me? Who's negotiating for me? And that's when I came to the idea that assistants, people in the workplace who don't have managers and agents, we need to be the CEOs of us incorporated. You need to be the CEO of you incorporated. If you're not looking out for you and the health and well-being of your company, your staff, meaning your family, whoever it is you're supporting, who's going to do it? And by the way, if we don't talk about money at conferences like Executive Secretary Live, where are we going to talk about this? That's a beautiful purpose of a gathering like this, is to put these fine minds in a room together and say, let's fix this, because economically, women are suffering around the world, and they're working. These are intelligent, resourceful people, so there's a lot of places for blame, to use your word.
Well, blame, thanks. Okay. Because here's the thing, too. I also think it's our fault. Because if you and I both had a position open, and it came down to 2 people, one male and one woman, both the same credentials, and he asked for, I'm just going to throw out a number, 80,000, and she proposes 60,000, who am I going to hire? Is it my fault? Who would you hire?
I have I would have a moral dilemma. And you and I both have assistants.
Yeah.
So we are in that dilemma. It's about being honest and transparent about it, though. The injustice of it all, I couldn't have an employee of mine be struggling. And executives, it's crazy to me that assistants are struggling, and they want their managers to ask them, how are you doing, to check in. But executives are not thinking about it. If we're not saying it, they think there's no problem. That's the thing.
But
men have no problem saying there's a problem.
Right.
And talking about money year long, not just at annual review time.
Would you, if you felt like the woman would be a perfect fit, not because she's a woman, but just she would make a perfect fit, would you turn around and offer her higher than what she proposed?
Possibly. Maybe not as much as the man was demanding. It has to do with the health and well-being of my company. We've interviewed a lot of leaders for our podcast series, and the most successful companies, like Jeff Hoffman, for example, co-founder of Priceline, I'll never forget what he said, that at his interviews, he wants to hire someone, he will ask the question, how is this job going to help you fulfill your goals? It is a two-way street, this whole idea of compensation. And it doesn't only have to be about money. If I couldn't afford the dollars, what else could I give you?
Right.
It's not
Training.
only, there's lots of things about compensation that don't have to do with actual dollars. It could be working at home, it could be flexibility, that have a dollar value.
Right. So my only point is you see where we have that responsibility of doing our research and making sure that we are asking for the right amount. And we're going to have some strategies. We have some ideas on how we can identify what is our value, how do we communicate that?
It is such, in general, a female dilemma phenomenon that we are so reluctant and often so filled with fear about speaking up. And certainly money is one of those tough, nobody wants to talk about money, or very few people want to talk about money. It makes people feel uncomfortable. So in talking with our students, I realized that part of the suffering in silence is that assistants have difficulty with the words to say. What are the exact words to say? And how do you sit across from somebody and start a conversation about money cold? Well, for women to say, well, I deserve 6 figures. That's a tough sentence for a lot of assistants to say. So that's when I started developing, this strategy for salary negotiations. And what I can promise you and the audience here is, and we've got some of our students in the audience, thank you so much, that, and we know this strategy works. 80% of the time, it does the job. So here it goes, and I take notes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's an article I wrote called 5 Ways for Women to Make More Money and Close the Wage Gap. So these strategies are in there, but here it is. Because it's so hard for women to talk about this cold, it's important to create a beautifully formatted document that, with the tips and tricks that you share, but a document that precedes the conversation. Say and any of what I'm about to say can be adjusted and varied due to the needs of your particular situation. But here goes, here are the elements. It's about creating a document and a cover letter that goes the week before your meeting. And of course, you're putting yourself on their calendar, and so you know when the meeting is. This document contains the following. These are the elements. Cover letter, possibly with your photo on the front. Page 1 is the job description you were hired in at. Dig it out. And it's also shocking to me how many assistants get hired without a written job description. Don't do that. If ever that happens, you create your own. Then, next page, the job description you're actually doing with the amount of hours it's taking to do that job description. Bulleted. This whole document is fact-driven. Next page, a bulleted list of your achievements from the last year that you've been keeping track of all year long in a folder, in a file, on OneNote perhaps, which I know is you'll talk about that. Bulleted. bulleted list of quantifiable things. You supervised a team of 6. You managed a budget of X number of dollars for the annual party. You helped renovate 2 offices. You moved the office.
You saved $150,000 in supply costs for changing vendors.
Quantifiable achievements. Next page, bulleted list of the things that you know are going to be happening in the next 6 to 12 months. You're going to be moving the office. You've got the big annual retreat for 300 people coming up that you're coordinating. That kind of thing. That tells your executive that you know what's coming up, what's coming at you. You've got a clear picture of that. In the next 3-4 pages, pull out from your nice letter file or your testimonial file, or whatever you want to call it. You should, all year long, I know that great assistants all get those atta-girl letters, or atta-boy letters, for the men in the room. The letters that say, wow, you really saved me. Catherine, thank you so much. I couldn't have done that project without you. Those kind of letters, 3 or 4 of them, really carefully selected, that will remind both you and your executive about how fabulous you are. Then a total outline of your compensation, your salary history, what you were hired in at, and what your package is. All fact-driven, how much vacation, what your bonus is, etc. And then the final page is a proposal. My proposal. Based on your research from recruiters, Indeed.com, Glassdoor.com, this is what you're proposing for this next year. This is how much more vacation you want. This is the parking space you want. Whatever it is that you want in your package, this is a proposal, okay? Fact-driven. Cover letter is critical. Hi, John. Looking forward to our meeting next week about my annual review. In preparation for the meeting, I prepared this document, which I thought will help us in the conversation. I'm so excited about what's happening in the next year. Like, this is not a threat. This letter is friendly. If you love working with this company, tell them. Tell them they need to know too. Love working with you and so excited for this next year. And you could even insert things like, I've had a conversation with my accountant, or I've given this a lot of thought. I love that one. I've given this a lot of thought and thought to prepare this document. Like, however you want to say it, these are my words. I'm just throwing out some ideas for you. And then you let someone you trust and has no other agenda other than they adore you and that they want the best for you, have them read it before you give it a kiss and either hit send on the PDF download, upload, or you put it on their desk, however you want to present it. But essentially, these documents, the cover letter and the proposal, do the talking for you before you ever walk into the meeting. And that's so much easier for assistants. Now, the reaction to this document when they get it, the executives, what students have told me, because they write me emails, they said, I did it. They mustered up their courage. And it does take courage. We know that, right? We've seen it. Okay, they muster up the courage, they do it. The executive is at first surprised. Of course, they're surprised. They've never gotten anything like this before. Like, wow, Elizabeth really put a lot of work into this, And then the reaction is impressed, very impressed, because it's letter perfect, all fact, no emotions, all fact-driven. And then lastly, they're respectful. They respect it, because you know what this document says? You are the CEO of you. You're watching out for you. Essentially, assistants are now acting in a business-like manner, very much like their executives are doing. You're modeling what they're doing. And that's what you can say in the meeting. And 80% of the time, these are, unscientific guesses, but I'm just sharing with you what I know to be true. 80% of the time, our students have gotten exactly what they ask for. So I say ask for a little bit more than you are willing to take. The other 10% of the time, the executive says, well, this is a lot that you're asking for. usually they're pitifully underpaid in the first place, so they're going for a big jump. And they say, well, you know, we can give you X number now, and then we can give you the next amount later. And then the other 10% of the time, they say no.
And so then what after they
Yeah.
say no? Like, what do you do? It's like, yeah, I quit.
Well, if they say no, that's, first of all, that's really important information for assistants to have. After all of that, for them to say no, that's important. And then the question is this: what is it that I need to do to make that money? What is it that you would like from me in order to achieve that salary? And the answer to that question, be ready with notes, because the answer to that question will tell you everything you need to know about your future with that company, whether you should stay, whether you should go.
Yeah.
Every job ends sometime. And our goal with this information and the work we're doing is to put the decision whether to stay or go more in the hands of the assistants rather than the executives and HR calling the shot. You know, you're in this proposal, you're essentially laying out your ROI, what you bring to the table. Too many assistants are having to justify their worth. And, you know, the word assistant is, you know, we're seeing a real tough conversation happening in the United States right now over that word. And so we're seeing some of our assistants going back to their executives and proposing new titles and in taking the word assistant out and saying things like administrative coordinator, administrative manager. Sometimes we just have to change the vocabulary in order to change the mindset. But it's time that we change this.
Yeah, and what you're essentially doing is you're curating all this information you've been collecting over the year, and it helps them. That's what executives and leaders want to see is that summarized in a document like that. I'd make it as short as possible, so only give them the raw facts. One of the things I would suggest is use OneNote. I mean, you could use Word document or whatever.
Technology, right?
When you get an email in Outlook, there's a OneNote button, and you can simply click on that OneNote button. It'll send that email to OneNote, and just put it in a OneNote notebook that's specific for your career, and start collecting all the letters of praise. I would also, if you're not getting lots of praise, start by praising other assistants. So be the wingman or wingwoman to your colleagues.
Yeah.
So if you know a colleague's done something amazing, send an email to their manager or to the team. Man, I don't know if y'all saw what Bonnie did in the last meeting, but she was able to do X, Y, and Z, and she really saved our butts about it, whatever. And just, so make sure you pat other people on the back, and people will do the same for you. I also use categories in Outlook or Gmail, whatever mail you use, and just create a category called annual review or praise. And anytime you see something that needs to be included in your review or your praise, then when you're ready to do the research, because you're going to need a week or two before your annual review to prepare this document, but you can just drop everything into OneNote. It doesn't have to be formatted. Just drop everything in there, and then when you're ready to sit down the weekend or wherever or during the week and look through it, and then you'll pick out the most important items to curate for that nicely formatted document and the cover letter. I think it's really important when Bonnie said, explain in the cover letter why you love working for the company. When my team says, I love the mission of what we do, I love getting up every morning thinking that we're helping people save time and helping them get home to their families on time. If I know that my staff is really passionate about what we do, I don't want to lose that person.
Right.
Because if we have a big project and we need to work 70 hours this week, I know that they know what the mission is. So reiterate why you love working there. I think that's really, really important.
Absolutely.
I would also suggest, because we're about to tie up here, suggest in there identifying what training you want to attend, what conferences, be prepared throughout the year. If you want to come to Executive Secretary Live, if you want to come to Be the Ultimate Assistant workshop, or any other training, technical training, managers and leaders want you to be as efficient as possible. So any way that you can use these words, and we'll make sure this is up on the podcast page, anytime you can use these words, this is what keeps leaders up at night. So if you need to make a business case for training, for higher salary, show how you are increasing efficiency. Show how you're returning investments, ROI on the technology. Like I now just got my Microsoft certification, so now I'm at the 80% level of leveraging the technology. That is a return on ROI for assets. If you're reducing paperwork, if you're showing people how to use OneNote and now there's a reduction in paperwork, use these words in that letter that Bonnie's talking about. And because this is what's keeping them up at night.
Absolutely.
And if you can show them, connect the dots between what's worrying them and how you're solving and providing value for the company, it's a no-brainer to me. But I love that idea.
I have a couple of things, and then we'll wrap this
Oh,
up.
no,
I can't believe this has gone so fast.
We've got 1 second.
Oh my God.
Seriously. No, I'm done.
All right, so we're going to switch to the next one. A quick point about interviews. More assistants could do more at the interview when you're about to get hired on an interview, to be able to say, okay, you're on the verge of getting hired. How often will we be revisiting salary? Will we be having an annual review? How many assistants tell us that they don't have one? They haven't had a review in 3 years. This is true stuff. We need to do a better job up front. It's not only about the salary that you're making initially. It's about how you're preparing for the future. It's the whole package. And finally, confidence is the X factor. We know that if a man and a woman are up for the same job, and you have a woman who's overqualified and has low self-esteem, and a man is underqualified and walks in there saying, I got this, I can do this, we know who's getting the job. So confidence is the X factor, and the best way to build confidence is to gather your tribe around you. Let us be mentors for each other. Let us do a better job of training one another in negotiating and how to do this, because it's your life. Olympia used to say, this is not a rehearsal. This is it. So we need to do a better job for you Incorporated.
I love that. Amy Cuddy's video about body language, we'll include it as a link that talks about what to do in the bathroom or in the loo before you go into your interview, the way you stand before you go in there. That has an impact on how well you do in the interview as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So do you have a parting quote? We always end with the quote. So do you have something you want to share?
You know, when it comes to money, hear this. You won't get if you don't ask. You don't get if you don't ask. So let us get better at asking. And the other one is that Amy says, fake it until you make it, baby. Fake it until you make it.
Can we tell the story? Oh, shoot, Lucy, can we just tell the story what happened last week? About you asked the question?
Yeah, oh my gosh, in Belgium.
Speaking of confidence, you have to hear this.
A room of 100 women, except for one 20-year-old male intern at the company at the back center of the room. And I asked the room, how many of you think of yourselves as leaders? And this is what the male did. First hand up, this way. And the women were like this. Like this. That's important for us to see, because I was like that. That's how, that was such an image to me about how women and men are socialized. And how old was he? 20. He got this at 20. And so let us see this. Okay, in fact, in our studio, everybody on 3, who thinks of themselves as a leader?
Yes.
There we go. Thank you.
So all day, yes. So I recommend all day when someone asks a question on stage and it's a yes for you, raise your hand really high. Just start practicing this weekend. Is just raise that hand. I thought that was so amazing. So
and
my quote is John Wooden, from John Wooden, UCLA basketball coach who's no longer with us. And I love this quote from him. It's It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. So if you have to fight for professional development, if you have to fight to increase your value, remember that no matter what position you're in, that there's always room for growth and adding more value. So it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. So keep learning.
Yep, and we have ways. Vickie and I have created a ton of resources, all with the effort to support you. And the big goal, of course, is to improve the workplace. And by doing that, because we know that assistants are the backbone of companies, the right arms to your executives, that will change the world. It will.
Great.
I know it. What do you think? Will it?
Yes. Good job.
Because God is my witness.
Yeah, it's our personal mission. So this concludes today's episode. Please write in for your comments and topic ideas and feedback on the podcast page at betheultimateassistant.com. Thank you, Lucy Brazier, for allowing us to be here today. Thank you to our live audience. Thank you again, once again. And thank you to our listeners. Okay, you ready?
All right, we're
All right,
done.
bye everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.